thank you for being here. The senators and congressman was helped us with this funding. This is federal funding, and we're pleased to share it among our partners. So in this sharing, I'd like to introduce our CEO and health officer, Dr. Michael Kilkenny.
In emergency response, it's all local. It starts local and it ends local. And that all happens before we get any help and before anything else occurs. And what we're here today is to celebrate a symbol of the help that is coming at the end of this pandemic. But there are a lot of people here who worked the pandemic, and I can say that in Cabell County, if you say all hands on deck, you had better have a truckload of work gloves because they're all going to show up.
I really just want to share from my heart about this matter. I just ask you all to reflect back to 2020, February of 2020, and the few months of February, March, April, May of 2020. Think back as to what that pandemic crisis felt like to all of us. That was quite a challenge to this community. I'm just going to focus here. It's quite a challenge to Huntington. It was a challenge to Cabell County. It was a challenge to the healthcare system. It was a challenge to the providers. It was an unprecedented, uncertain time. So it is a great positive first step of our government through FEMA saying, if you go forward and do these things for our citizens, those are the citizens of Huntington and Cabell County, we will someday come back and reimburse you for all those expenses.
And I can't say enough about the community partnerships that we have here in Huntington and what they mean, especially during a pandemic. I applaud the leadership of our institutions. That's the health department. That's obviously Mountain Health Network, Marshall Health, and Marshall University. Because without that leadership, we would never been able to come together like we did. These relationships are invaluable, and they are today. So they mean so much. It was about this time last year when we closed our community testing tents, about 2 years and 70,000 COVID tests later, right? That's a lot. And that was for one site only, right? I would like to recognize and thank the faculty, the staff, medical students, and resident physicians who worked tirelessly with our friends at Mountain Health Network. Together, they worked the tents through extreme weather conditions, and they banded together to distribute and administer vaccinations. We truly appreciate the support from FEMA, so thank you very much, gentlemen. And thank you to the local health department for obtaining the FEMA dollars.
I know everyone's heard me share this before. My favorite quote in life is by Anatole France. And it says, each of us are born angels with one wing, and the way we fly is beholden unto one another. And I translate that into our local interpretation, which is the most important letters in our name, West Virginia, are the first two, W-E. And the first important word in the rally cry, we are Marshall, is the first word, we. And I think that this reaction that we pulled together to fight a pandemic, it's emblematic of everything we are in our community. I love our community. I love the fact we pull together. And there is a metaphor that I often talk about when I talk about our students and I talk about our faculty and our staff and our community, and it's the wisdom of geese. Raise your hand if you've seen the Wisdom of Geese video on YouTube. If you have not, it describes what scientists have discovered about why geese fly in that formation, that V. What they've discovered is they fly 70% further if they fly together in that formation, breaking the wind resistance for the one behind it. And then they talk about the one in the front, which you think must be the leader, but they notice that they only stay in that position for about 10 minutes, and eventually the wind resistance wears it out, and it has to drop back in line, and another one takes that leadership position. And then you hear the honking, and you think, well, they must be complaining, but they're actually not complaining. The honking is like stroke, stroke, stroke to keep them going at the right pace. And perhaps what's the most amazing part is when one gets sick or weak and it drops down, two others drop with it to protect it from the wind until it can get strong enough to come back and rejoin the flock. I think that is exactly what this community did thus far through this pandemic. It is a privilege to be a part of that. And it is a privilege to have the chance to serve with Cabell Huntington Health Department, with the Mountain Health Network, with Marshall Health, and with everyone at Marshall University